I've seen that with friends who've come here thinking that it would be this kind of, I guess, sex bonanza for them, and then they were just, disappointed and complaining afterwards. Oh, Ukraine, I have to invest, 2 or 3 weeks of my holidays to meet a girl. Let's go somewhere else. So they just go somewhere else, which is ironic because of the perception that Ukrainian girls are easy.
SAR Experience.
Всем привет and welcome back to another episode of the Vodka Vodcast with me, Connor Klein. This is the SAR Experience, and this evening I am speaking to you from Odessa in Ukraine, right in front of the football stadium of the local football club, Chornomorets. There you can see it right behind me, the entrance to the football stadium. And in today's episode of the Vodcast, I'm going to be delving into answering a question that perhaps a lot of you guys out there who haven't visited Ukraine before are curious about knowing about, and that's whether Ukrainian girls are easy, in inverted commas, because actually I don't really like the word easy. It kind of sounds pejorative, but I guess what you're trying to get at when a lot of guys ask me this question is, are Ukrainian girls more promiscuous, shall we say, than in other countries here in Europe and maybe across the world? So that's what I'm going to be trying to answer today. And I think what's interesting is even if this question comes up and where this perception comes up about Ukrainian girls being easy, I guess it comes from several factors. I mean, one, that the country is poor and has a lot of beautiful girls. Girls don't have maybe very many religious issues or moral issues with having sex outside of marriage, for example. Also in Western Europe, quite a high number of prostitutes happen to come from Ukraine, according to the statistics that I saw. Actually, they were only number 2 as a country in the EU. Romania was number 1, but Romania does have freedom of movement, of course, across the continent of work, so it's maybe that's the difference why it's number 1 and number 2, but that's kind of not so important which country, which nationality works more in sex work in Western Europe. But definitely that perception comes, and also a lot of the tourism here is associated with sex tourism, unfortunately. Now, sex tourism, I know that differs as an expression in different languages, as I've discovered recently, but according to UN, that sex tourism involves a commercial aspect. So we're really talking about guys, or well, it's almost exclusively going to be guys who travel to Ukraine to pay for sex, as opposed to someone who travels here hope of picking up girls or finding a wife or finding a girlfriend. That's very different in English under the definition of sex tourism according to the United Nations. So the sex tourism, i.e. this paying for sex or prostitution tourism, is also something that gets associated with Ukraine. I always find that a great pity because there are so many other reasons to come to Ukraine than that. So I want to examine in today's episode whether that's true, whether Ukrainian girls are maybe easier to hook up with and easier to have sex with than other nationalities across Europe in particular, because a lot of you guys are, of course, going to be traveling in different countries across Europe, not just here in Ukraine. You may go to Western Europe first, maybe Central Europe, maybe other parts of Eastern Europe. So I want you to have a good idea what it's going to be like when you get to Ukraine itself. Now it is true that salaries are a lot lower here in Ukraine than they are in other parts of Europe, and it's pretty easy to work in prostitution abroad. I mean, it's very, well, I wouldn't say very easy, but it's definitely very attractive in terms of the salary difference that a prostitute can make in, say, the Emirates or in Western Europe compared to local salary here, which is going to be a few €100 per month working in a normal job, and that's partly explains the pull factor towards foreign prostitution amongst Ukrainians. Now, but is that representative of girls in general when you come here? Now, in previous episodes of the podcast, I explained what happened to me on my first trips to Ukraine and all the different things that happened. Some of them were quite traumatic. It certainly didn't involve a lot of easy girls, for sure. You can go back and have a look at those podcast episodes. Should be episodes 4 and 5. They're divided into 2 parts each. Just go back in if you're watching this in YouTube and take a look. I'll also link them below, I guess, in the description. Also, if you're listening to this in the podcast, it'll be in the show notes. So my first trip to Ukraine, I guess I also kind of bought into that perception to a certain extent before I came here, and I was really, really surprised by what actually was like here in reality once I got here. It certainly wasn't like going to Mallorca, or I'm just trying to think of a resort that's known for kind of like couples hooking up or singles hooking up when they go there in Western Europe. Like definitely something like the Balearic Islands in general has that kind of reputation. Like I remember going to Mallorca as an 18-year-old Irish boy, and that was basically the main reason to go there, to drink and to meet girls. So definitely compared to that experience, Ukraine was very, very different. And it's not just me. I mean, over the years, I've seen other friends come here, clients come here, and they also struggle, to be honest. They struggle a lot, in fact, and they don't hook up with girls very easily in general. That might come as a big surprise to you. So why is that the case? Especially guys who come from Western Europe, or maybe there's a perception that they're rich, that they're a big catch for local girls here, considering, for one reason, the difference in the salaries. So why would it be that it would be so much more difficult? Now, you have to remember, Ukraine is a pretty traditional society with a modern veneer. So just because girls look very modern, of course, girls don't necessarily dress very conservatively here. They dress more or less the same as in Western Europe, maybe even, well, compared to British girls, maybe not. But yeah, definitely they have similar kind of dress style or social mores as you'd expect in the West, except that here it's a little bit more traditional in terms of the perception of relationship and sex. So if you come here as a foreign guy and you expect it to be some sort of like Mallorca of Eastern Europe, it's not really going to be that way. I would expect that you're going to have to invest more time in terms of getting to know a girl that you meet here than say in Central Europe, and definitely more than in most parts of Western Europe. Of course, there are differences across all the countries there, and for example in Southern Europe it's also maybe at times a little bit more conservative than say in Central Europe or Western Europe, or it definitely is compared to Northern Europe. So whilst there are some girls who really just want to leave Ukraine, they can do that pretty easily. There are a lot of, you know, today with the internet, it's so easy to find someone, if you're a pretty young Ukrainian girl, to take you somewhere, and maybe it happens to be Western Europe, maybe it happens to be the Middle East, maybe it happens to be Turkey. They receive, believe me, just offers every day over some sort of social network, so that's not very hard for them. So there are girls like that that maybe you'll meet, especially those who are less traditional and want to maybe even more likely to speak English because they want to leave the country. But in fact, the majority of Ukrainian girls don't even want to date a foreigner. They'd rather date a local guy and stay here. And pretty local Ukrainian girls have a lot of options. So there's often this perception that when I return to Western Europe, that I hear, oh, the girls in Ukraine are desperate because, you know, it's so poor there. Foreign guys come and have so much money and they're all throwing themselves at these foreign guys who come here. That's not the case at all. First of all, pretty Ukrainian girls have a lot of options. Even locally, even if overall the economy is not strong in Ukraine, there are super rich guys here, of course. It's a country that's known for corruption. Not all the money is declared. Don't believe it's actually as poor as it might be in the statistics. It's wealthier for sure. And those local girls would rather, in general, date a local guy. So they're definitely not going to be throwing themselves at the foreign guys. And as I said, like, relationships are valued more here, and girls definitely take, whilst they may, of course, one-night stands are possible, they're actually rarer here than you're going to find in Western Europe for sure. 100% for sure, it's less common here. It does happen if a girl just happens to particularly like you, that can of course happen, but in general it's not, and it's going to take a good investment of time. And I've seen that with friends who've come here thinking that it would be this kind of, I guess, sex bonanza for them, and then they were just, you know, disappointed and complaining afterwards. Oh, Ukraine, I have to invest, you know, 2 or 3 weeks of my holidays to meet a girl. Let's go somewhere else. So they just go somewhere else, which is ironic because of the perception that Ukrainian girls are easy. So another interesting difference between, say, Western Europe, Central Europe, and here in Ukraine is that kissing is not so common in public, like making out in a club or just in public in general. It's actually a lot rarer, especially if you just met someone. Again, all these things do happen when you go out in Ukraine. It's not like it's never happens, but definitely happens less. So that's another thing to bear in mind. Like I'm used to traveling to Brazil. Like I usually go to Brazil once a year, and there Brazilians just love to make out and kiss all the time. So that's going to happen very, very quickly if there's any sort of rapport between you and a girl you meet. But here in Ukraine, that's actually normally going to take a while. You may meet the girl several times before you even kiss. That's not uncommon at all. It all depends on the mood I think a lot about the mood you create, but definitely for me, it's like definitely a culture shock if you come from Brazil to Ukraine, because it's really, really uncommon to see that compared to Western Europe even. So while I was here this summer in Ukraine, I met a Belgian guy, actually met him twice because I bumped into him 3 weeks later. His name was Sven, and he saw me and actually Danny, who I collaborated in several videos with here in Odessa. Danny has a YouTube channel, I'll also link that below. It's got a world to see, some great travel videos there, and I think he actually recognized Danny on the street, or maybe recognized me as well. And then later, a few weeks on, I actually met him in a club here in Odessa. Afterwards we went for a coffee because I was really interested to find out his experience here, because he stayed a few weeks, and it was really interesting because Sven had actually traveled around a lot of the world, had been used to hanging out in Latin America in particular, obviously Europe, and he actually said that several interesting things. He thought here was one of the hardest places to hook up with girls he had encountered anywhere, right? So that's definitely giving you the opposite experience to what maybe the perception is, and maybe it's putting girls in Ukraine on the hard end of the spectrum, if we want to use those kind of terms. And he also said that being a foreigner was an advantage every single place he visited, except this city, except Odessa, Ukraine, and that if you come here with the expectations that you're gonna bang lots of chicks when you show up, you're probably gonna leave with your ego on the floor. So I really found that elucidating as an experience, because that's basically what happens to most foreign guys who come here single, hoping to meet girls, maybe want to hook up with lots of girls on a trip. It requires a lot of time, and that's really the message I want to give to you guys who are watching this episode of the vlogcast. And if you're watching it, we're probably coming towards the end of the video now. You obviously have some desire to come here to Ukraine, meet girls, of course, and you'll see in my other videos, there are a lot of beautiful girls. that give the reasons to date Ukrainian girls, reasons not to date them, but I would encourage you to definitely invest a reasonable amount of time in your trip. Don't plan to come here for a few days and have these expectations, because that's very unlikely to be the case, especially with the girls who are prettier and have more options. They're not going to be rushing to hook up with you unless, just because you're a foreigner or just because you're particularly handsome. That usually isn't the case. I refer to that in one of my other videos, but the fact that as a guy, looks are actually a lower priority here than they would be maybe in Western Europe or in North America, which is good if you're not a good-looking guy. It's not good if you happen to be handsome, of course, because you're probably going to have to work harder than you're used to. And I've seen that with some friends who are like jacked and good-looking and super successful women in other countries, and then they come here and they're like, oh my God, I have to do so much work. This is not worth it. Well, I would say it's still worth it, but definitely be aware that this is the local culture, that don't expect that this is some like hookup bonanza when you come here, and be prepared to stay longer. I think the country is great. I have my end of summer travel vlog from Odessa coming up. We're going to really show what the spirit and the atmosphere of the city is like, so definitely you should plan to spend a reasonable amount of time here. I would say 3 to 4 weeks is a lot better investment of your time to get to know the city, get to know the people, and especially to get to know girls if you want to come here and have some sort of romantic experience. You could, of course, try to meet girls before you come here. That would involve using probably dating sites, dating apps. I don't particularly have a lot of trust in those. From what I've seen, there are a lot of scams, a lot of scammers I have separate videos on that. I refer to it as an issue. You can, of course, use dating apps, pay for the premium. It usually lets you talk to girls before you arrive. That can be a good idea. I have used Tinder here. I will make a separate video also about that sometime soon. And it's been good and bad in terms of using it, in terms of meeting girls that I liked. So definitely that's an option, but basically it's always best to just come here, spend a few weeks, get to know people, places, girls, and then you will have a fantastic time. And if you are planning to come, then write me a message. Why not? You can DM me on Instagram. My handle is ZaraExperience, and you can write me an email at connorklein@zaraexperience.com. I'm going to also have those below in the description and in the show notes. If you want to do that, you should definitely I've been organizing lots of different tours and events and stuff for you guys, and providing a lot of coaching to my clients who come here. So giving you advice about how to have the Zara experience and how to set that up for you when you come here. So if you want that personalized coaching and personalized service, tours, anything like that, then definitely get in contact with me and write me. I'm going to leave my email address below, connorklein@zaraexperience.com. Also my Instagram handle, Zar Experience, and then you can direct message me there. So let me know what you think. Are Ukrainian girls easy or not? Are they hard? Are they promiscuous? Let me know your personal experience down in the comments section. Always great to hear not just your comments, but to see the reactions to the comments. It starts a really great discussion and debate on all these topics to do with learning the languages, traveling, and dating girls here in the raw east of Europe. So if you do have personal experience with Ukrainian girls, with traveling here to Ukraine, with love, maybe getting scammed, anything like that, let me know in the comment section below. You'll not just be helping me, but also all the other guys who are interested in traveling to this part of Europe. And definitely we're creating this amazing community of people who are super enthusiastic and passionate like I am about this region. So definitely go and drop a comment if you have any personal experience or even just your own thoughts about the subject. I will see you very shortly in probably, maybe it's already in the channel by the time I release this episode of the podcast, but the end of summer travel vlog from Odessa, Ukraine is coming really soon. It's going to be massive. I'm going to finish up filming this week. It's really going to give you a great taste of what the city has to offer. I'm really looking forward to getting that done and showing you and sharing with you my experience here in Odessa. So until the next video, I look forward to seeing you back here on the channel. All your smiling, enthusiastic faces for this part of Eastern Europe. So it's good evening, good morning, good afternoon if you're not in a time zone. See you soon. Do побачення, до свидання from Odessa, Ukraine.
Zar Experience.